Stories that hurt and stories that heal. This is a real skills workshop. And Kathy and I, we know that stories are how we interact with one another. They're part of it. And even though I may be listening to someone who feels that they are saying an absolute nonfiction story that is what it is their perspective. And part of, we believe, the skill of interacting and relating and co-creating with people is to be able to discern what's their story, what's my story, and particularly if we've taken on a story that doesn't serve us, it's actually harming us and hurting us. And I'm Rick from Thriving Now, and I'm delighted to be here with Kathy Bartuli from Thriving Now and the Intimacy Dojo. And I know, Kathy, you've done a lot of work on stories that hurt and stories that heal. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you.
It's a topic I'm very passionate about. We can use stories in incredible ways to help people learn through all kinds of resistance people have. If we tell you a story, we can give you a great information and tips. If we include the story, you're probably going to remember that story decades from now, but you may not remember a single one of those tips or even who we were. And our brains are geared that way. A lot of our learning, the best learning that we do is through stories. And they can also be used, fables and myths about people can be really very harmful. We believe them.
Mm.
Um, and I don't think they're all ill-intentioned. I certainly think that our media often will exaggerate things and create stories to try to control us. And I want to be more based in reality than they would like probably for us to be. But just on a protective mechanism, we often create stories about what happened. We don't understand what happened, so we make up a story about this is what they were doing, this is why they did it, because our brain needs to have some kind of like that unknown is very hard. And I do think that it's okay to be with unknown, but generally our brains will try to fill in gaps and tell us what happened, why, when we're really guessing. And other people are doing the same about us. We have our own beliefs, our own stories about who we are. Can we start interacting? Like the stories are interacting with each other versus humans interacting with each other. And that can really limit us in some ways, especially if we're not consciously choosing what stories to let in, what beliefs to let in. We're just kind of accepting what's coming at us. We may find that we're really dissatisfied with life and we don't feel really engaged and we're not sure why. We're feeling we're at the whim of other people. And it could well be that we're really believing a story that just doesn't fit who we are. And we're trying to live up to that.
Mhm. I remember the first time I had someone wag their finger at me and say, you're making up a story." I was so offended because in my mind, I was speaking of a nonfiction. This was a nonfiction story. This was the truth. And the assertion was that this was all made up. And so I wanted to orient us here around what do we mean by story. And um, uh, someone I follow on X, his name is Brian, beautiful soul. And yeah, he said that we are storytellers and tool makers, and that helped inspire this. And I think about, as Kathy said, well, stories is a way that we communicate, and we have different genres. We have nonfiction, we have historical novels and historical biographies, historical autobiographies. We have fantasies, we have fairy tales, we have I my family watched Frozen 2 again. I've definitely seen it at least 15 times. And part there's part of that animated story, that fairy tale that really speaks to me. Um, Even fighting with the water and the water spirit and there's so much to that story that resonates, and I can see in my boy as I've watched it with him from the time he was 5. He'd already seen it 20 times. He's less into it now, but I noticed that he noticed different things about that story. He took things from it. And I suspect, many decades older than him, I take things differently and I have life experience that makes that story mean something to me. And so as we explore this, if you find yourself feeling a memory of like being called a liar when what you were telling was something that was your story, that was your memory, that was your feeling, that was really like, what? Wait, I'm not a liar. This is what I'm saying. And maybe you remember being a liar because the story that was like the nonfiction version of it was not going to be something that would have kept you, for example, safe. It wasn't something that you could handle. I have both in my experience. Kathy.
Yeah, I think I love what you just said about like being called a liar. We have different things we notice, and any like there's like information, and I think that I if I'm remembering the numbers right, like we have like thousands of bits of information coming at us each second, just visually. Forget about hearing or sensation or temperature, which we're all picking up. We all notice different aspects of things, different things our brains think are important. And so, two people objectively watching the same experience, maybe from a slightly different, standing slightly different to it, can come up with totally different experiences that they had. But then we're also painting in our interpretations of that. And like one person could be like, it was so horrible. And the other person can be like, oh, this just happened. This person was riding a bike and they went off the curb and they fell. It just happened. They got up. They were okay. Another person, maybe because they've had experiences where they were really traumatized, is like, oh my God, it was the worst thing ever. So there's interpretation. And there's also what we notice like, oh, the boy wasn't paying attention to where he was biking. And the other person's like, oh, yeah, he was like, you distracted. So we start like, there's the visual effects that a video recorder could pick up and that we may or may not emphasize, but then there's all the interpretations that go on after that. And some people are very attached to them. They have meaning because of other experiences they've had that they're very tightly attached to. And when we're little children, we're trying to learn to interpret the world. And when someone older and bigger than us calls us a liar or says we didn't see it right, it's really natural for people to go, oh, maybe I can't trust my own perception. Maybe I can't trust my interpretation. And we're little trying to figure out the world and who we are in it. And other people are telling us stories about ourselves with all their filters and interpretations. So there's a lot being lumped on. And when all that happens when we're little, our brain is still exploring. It doesn't have a solid, like I understand the world feeling, though we may think we do. We're very easily and it goes into our subconscious. So if as adults we're still being influenced by the stories other people told us about ourselves or our experiences of how well we saw the world, and it may even be that those adults didn't see it as clearly as real light, or as cleanly in the sense of like objective reality, not bringing in other stories or lots of interpretation in it. And it's not saying anyone's bad or wrong. This is just people do this. We interpret things.
And part of uh, why we call this a real skills workshop is I my story is that if I'm aware of the fact that people are storytellers and that I'm a character in people's stories, maybe even a character in someone's story. Or maybe I don't even recognize myself by the way they describe this guy, this character named Rick. Like, what are you talking about? Uh, all of those are in my background, and I'm bringing those to this workshop because I want I believe it's savvy for me to be aware of that and accept that that's a reality. And to be savvy in recognizing, like, what kind of storyteller am I engaging with? Is this do they tell stories about me where I recognize myself? Or are they seeing me through lenses that may be perceptive on in some spectrum, but don't really serve me. Maybe they are harmful. So, for example, I'm pretty sure out of 8 billion people, there might be someone that points at me and says, "You, Rick, are a failure." Has anyone been called a failure? When you're like, what? Okay. So that's in my energy field, that reality, the things that I've been called, the finger pointing kinds of things. And we use EFT tapping because it's a tool makers and tool users. We use this tool um, to shift the energy about it. Because for me, if somebody points their finger and says, "You are X," right? Um, there's a jolt, and I don't know what to do with it in my energy field right away. And sometimes it gets stuck there
Yeah.
and it becomes a story that hurts. The story is this person I really wanted to like me, for example, thinks that I'm a creepy old dude. Okay. Eh, yeah, that's hard. So, if since you're listening and a part of this workshop, whether live or on the recording, thanks for joining us. Um, if there's a UR that's kind of sticky, like, oh, they said you are what? Um,
And I just want to emphasize one of the things that Rick said about like when people judge us from the outside, our survival brain is really geared to pleasing and being seen as valuable. So when someone else tells us a story about how we may not be as valuable and may not be as important, or less loved, that our survival brain just like, oh my god, it gets that jolt is partly like, I might not survive. They might not protect me from the lions that come, or if I hurt myself, they may not feed me. Like they might, someone might not come and bring me extra firewood, and that could be life or death if we lived in a, so if you can be gentle with yourself when we notice, like, I often like I shouldn't be influenced by other people's stories. Should stand strong. My survival brain's like, no, 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 no. And it's very powerful. So I think it's great to like give ourselves like, oh, I recognize this. Thank you, survival brain, for really paying attention to this. And I don't maybe I can turn down the dial. I can consciously give myself a break and go, that's one person. There's 8 billion other people that I could reach out for now.
so we're going to use some tapping here on the UR. If you have one listed, maybe put how intense it still feels to you now. Like the one I'm picking is still an 8.
Oh.
And laughter and tears are welcome here. And I offer that to myself as well. Even though they said I was that,
And then they said I was that.
and it shocked me.
It shocked me.
It horrified me,
It horrified me.
really confused me.
It really confused me.
And some of that's still hanging on
And some of that's still hanging on.
top of the head. How could they think that?
How could they think that?
Well, how could that be their story?
How could that be their story?
Side of the eye. Part of me still trying to figure out.
Part of me is still trying to figure it out.
Under the eye, how could they see me that way?
How could they see me that way?
Under the nose, how could they judge me that way?
How could they judge me that way?
Then how could they write my caricature that way?
How could they write my caricature that way?
Hold on. I don't like how they made up the story about me.
I don't like how they made up a story about me.
Under the arm, but they seemed so certain it was nonfiction.
They seem so certain it was nonfiction.
And at the time, I didn't smell the bullshit.
At the time, I didn't smell the bullshit.
Top of the head. I can't stop them from making up stories.
I can't stop them from making up stories.
And I'm starting to recraft one for myself.
And I'm starting to recraft one for myself.
So if there are two stories going on at the same time, and in their story, you are, what's yours? What is your, particularly if you can tune in to what mattered to you, what your intentions were, what comes up in your body. If you'd like to share in the chat, welcome, you're welcome to. Kathy, would you lead us on another round around this? Like,
I'd love to. If it would help people to tune. We often get stories in our family of origin that start very young. It's very common for certain roles to be assigned to certain kids, certain people in the family. It doesn't even have anything to do necessarily with what they do. Growing up, I was the black sheep. If something went wrong in the family, it was my fault. I caused my parents' struggles in their marriage. I caused my mother to be upset. There was a lot of that growing up, and it was like a fish in water. I couldn't recognize it because it was constant. And it wasn't until I went off to college and people were suddenly not treating me that way that I was like, what's happened? Like, who are these people and what do they want? Um, and it's been really interesting because that's changed and evolved in my family now. I'm no longer the bad daughter, the black sheep, and it's almost disconcerting because it was so constant. But I just wanted to give you something to tune on to. Like, if we can start recognizing when we're swimming in dirty water, we may not have I choose to still spend time with my family. I still go back, and even when I was still the black sheep, I would go and swim in that water sometimes. But I recognized that the water was dirty and that my responses and it didn't matter if I brought flowers, if, like, did you steal them from the neighbor? Like, no, like, I kind of bought them at the store. Why'd you spend money on flowers? Why didn't you get something else? Like, I could interpret, oh, I've been assigned this story, this role has been this a character, as Rick was talking about, like someone has assigned me this role in this play, and they're putting the costume on me anytime I come into their room, into their space. And I could say, oh, they're doing that, and it's them, not me. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize that, and I'd like to do a little tapping for that. So invite you all, just take a nice just breath. Some of this work is very tender, and we're working at some of the foundations of our archetype and our architecture. So karate chop, even though this is pretty tender,
even though this is really tender,
I thought I had to make myself different or better
I thought I had to make myself different or better
to fit into their play.
to fit into their play as a positive role.
And maybe I don't have to change that much about me.
Maybe I don't have to change that much about me.
Maybe I can just change what I'm noticing.
Maybe I can just change what I'm noticing.
Top of that, they're very attached to this story.
Oh, they're very attached to this story.
Eyebrow, it makes them feel safe somehow.
Makes them feel safe somehow. That's my story.
Maybe maybe it's not about me at all.
Maybe it's not about me.
Under the eye, they needed someone to fill this role.
I needed someone to fill this role.
Under the nose, and subconsciously, they decided it was me.
And subconsciously, they decided it was me.
Chin, what if I could release this role?
What if I could release this role?
Collarbone, at least for my own subconscious.
Definitely for my own subconscious and self confidence.
Yeah. And there, what if I could be curious about who I really am?
What if I could be curious about who I really am
Top of the head, and discard this costume they put on me.
and discard this costume they put on me?
And just take a breath. And just notice, like for me, it's been a gradual process. It wasn't one day I'm like, oh, this costume is garbage. It was just like, just remind myself. And I actually put a post-it note. I'm a big fan of post-it notes. They're all over my house, reminders. Just the question, am I really this?
Oh,
So I leave it up.
interesting.
And I would like, my brain would be, I'd talk to my mom on Zoom or whatever, and I'd be like going, and I'm like, oh, I see that post-it note. I'm just interrupting the pattern a little bit and just asking the question. So again, I don't think for some of us, we may be ready to throw the costume away, but for most of us, it's more gradual. Like I'm stepping out now. Oh, I'm stepping out now a little faster. I mean, like there's a process with this. And it's okay not to have to rip out the roots necessarily, but start noticing that there are roots. Not all of them are yours. Could be really useful.
We're talking about, filters. Um, I remember eating a bunch of ice cream. And
Okay,
can you see
okay,
this?
good. Yes.
So, and I was called a pig by my evil stepmother. Part of my story. And, you know, she saw me as through a certain filter. I believe that that's a lot of what we do is we see each other's through filters. And um, what's interesting is for those of us who would consider themselves highly sensitive people or empathetics or empaths, um, my filter is an inclusion filter. I'm getting information that not everybody does. And sometimes I don't know what to do with that. In fact, growing up, I can point to lots of examples where I was picking up things. My inclusion filter was picking up things that were going on in people that I didn't necessarily know what to do with. And so I made up stories about it. Um, I I think stories are incredibly useful, but the ones that hurt are the ones that when we use a tool to start shifting that, like Kathy was leading us through, we start softening, create some detachment. There's a there's that sense of like being enmeshed in someone else's story. And as children, we don't have that capacity to be um, really in our own uh, internal reference, our own internal storyteller. Um, it's part of my intention for thriving is that we get to recognize, acknowledge, and determine how we want to be with other people's stories. Um, Side of the hand, I have stories,
I have stories,
and they're useful,
and they're useful,
and some are really healing,
and some are really healing,
and some have been hurtful.
and some have been hurtful.
I accept where I am,
I accept where I am,
and that my brain makes up stories,
and that my brain makes up stories,
and so does yours,
and so does yours,
so does theirs.
so does theirs.
We're navigating stories,
We're navigating stories,
and none of them see it. None of us see them exactly the same.
and none of us see them exactly the same.
Top of the head. What if that's okay?
What if that's okay?
Eyebrow. The hurtful stories have been hurtful.
The hurtful stories have been hurtful.
Side of the eye. I didn't like being called a pig.
I didn't like being called a pig.
Under the eye. In their story, I was a pig.
In their story, I was a pig.
Under the nose. In my story, I was hungry.
In my story, I was hungry.
Chin. And now in my story, I know I was emotionally soothing myself
And now in my story, I know is emotionally
in a very emotionally hostile world.
in a very emotionally hostile world.
All alone. And ice cream was my friend.
Ice cream was my friend.
Under the arm. I'm appreciating how my stories are changing.
I'm appreciating how my stories are changing.
I bet there's some that are ripe for more of that.
And I bet there's more of that. I think that the evolving part, I think, Rick, is just like we are evolving. And some people are evolving to tighten in on the stories and double down. And some people are like going, I'd like to be a little more curious about this. Maybe I like most of the story, but chapter 2 has some phrases that I really would rewrite if I could. Like I think that we can choose, are we moving towards stories that are more helpful and loving and kind and encouraging, or stories that are more harmful. And I'm not against, like, I want to look at things objectively. If I did make a mistake or if I do have things I want to improve, I want to look at that realistically. Um, and I think we can also, within the realistic looking at things, we can be more positive or more negative. If, like, I'll never get over this as I'm stuck, or of course I can make small changes in my life that will help me start being who I want to be. If that makes
And someone said,
someone shared,
oh, go ahead.
nope.
Um, it's hard to determine how much is fact and how much is fiction.
Yeah.
And that's where the savvy part of storytelling that's healing can be helpful. You start with something like, "Oh, you're so unlikable." Imagine a story where this really happy, kind, wonderful person is walking through the world and runs into a grumpalumpalus. And this grumpalumpalus looks at this happy, sweet, wonderful human being and goes, "I don't like you. You're not likable at all." Now, I just wrote a story from the perspective of me, Rick, looking at that dynamic. And you'll notice that if I detach from it a bit, it's a little easier. Now, if I'm the happy-go-lucky skipping down the street and a carload of college students calls me an epithet having to do with my sexuality, and I don't know what to do with that, who did I run into? Is it true? Is it is it gays that skip down the street? I know a lot of gay men, and I skip more than they men most of them do. So what's up with this story? But the story that I made was, oh, oh my goodness, I can't be myself on the street. Well, a different story which I've crafted is, there are places and spaces which welcome the skipping happy heart. And there are places that don't, you know? And I want, part of my story now is around discernment and being savvy. Not that's, I like that I skip. And yeah, there's Grumpalompalus and there's bullies and there are other people too. And they exist in my ecosystem. I don't have a fairy tale sort of orientation. I want my stories to recognize, even if they're fantasies, even if they're fictional, even if I'm making it up, Grumpalompalus and the jolly jelly bean. If I make up a kid's story about the Grumpalompalus and the jolly jelly bean, I want to also recognize that, there are people that don't like jelly beans. Um, and so, when someone says you're too needy, and that's their story, you can say, well, for them,
Yeah, I think that there's often
our story.
people
Go ahead.
displaced by blaming outside. So you are too needy versus I am feeling overwhelmed with what you need. Like that's more like, or I don't have the resources to be what you need right now. Would be much more direct and kind. And the same, someone asked about how do you deal with you shouldn't feel that way or you shouldn't do that. Instead of saying, I don't feel comfortable when you do that, or I don't know how to deal with your emotions, I could say you shouldn't feel that. I had a boss that if I said I was upset, he's like, don't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. I'm like, I don't know how to not feel that. Like, I'm so confused. Like, how do I respond to that? But he's basically saying, I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to deal with that, or I don't know how to deal with that. But he wasn't saying it in a way. It was like shaming outside. So if someone yells at Rick that he's acting gay, it might be they feel very uncomfortable about their own sexuality or they're worried other people. And it's like when you are that exuberant, I notice I'm limiting myself and I don't feel good. We leave that part out is it's protective for the person that's saying it. So I think it's really important if you can, when someone says something like that, if we can say, what are they actually saying that they want or need? If someone says you're too needy, it just may be that what you particularly need, I don't feel like I can supply or don't want to. That doesn't mean that everybody else, there's lots of other people that wouldn't, but they're painting a universal picture to protect their sense of ego, protect their perception of themselves, if that makes sense.
Well, and there's Susan Campbell. Um, I I read most of her books, and you introduced me to her.
Yeah, she's
Um,
wonderful.
I changed who I was as a storyteller in relationships by just one of the images that she gave. Um, at least I think she gave it to me because I was reading her book. And what I got from it was, if I'm speaking about feelings, stay on my side of the net. And what does that mean? Well, it's like, I, I'll give you a little story. Um, my boy is very exuberant, and um, on the exuberance spectrum, he's ecstatically exuberant. Um, And that's sometimes. Now, if I look at that and say, well, you need to get yourself under control, that's my story trying to get him to buy into my story. I'm inviting him, I'm telling him that he needs to get into my story where such exuberance needs to be controlled. That didn't work too well. And and in the interest of being savvy, when she said, stay on your side of the net, I said, well, what is this for me? Well, it overwhelms my nervous system. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I had a story about how inside voices and stuff like that. But honestly, I like exuberance. I like to skip. I don't mind that. And there are times when it's too much for me. So if I share my, as a storyteller in relationship, if I say, hey, buddy, that's too much for my nervous system right now. That much noise. Do you, do you feel like you can quiet it down? Do I need to put in earplugs? What have you? Now, I am still telling a story, but it is from my perspective, and I'm sharing it with him. And it's it's been so much better. um, you know, even when I'm referring to someone else, like, with it's hard for me to be around people that are blank. That's different from, I don't like people that are blank. It's also different from, people like that you need to avoid. No, those are three stories. They're different, storytellers will tell that. I don't really have a strong judgment, but I'm wanting to craft stories in my relationships that are more savvy, that get me closer to the people I want to be close to, that help me understand how we're interacting, how our stories are bumping up against each other, and whether, and particularly, to be more on the side of healing than hurting. I don't want my boy to grow up feeling like his exuberance is, he's too much, or that his desire for attention is too needy. So, and someone mentioned that, like, so am I too needy? Well, I think we can all point to moments when we don't have the capacity to meet a need. I'm hungry, fix me dinner. I don't have the capacity right this minute to do that. Are they being too needy? No, they're hungry. I need a hug. Listen, I need my space. Are they too needy? Now, if they tell me, you need to hug me,
That's different.
I, what, and again, in my story, that is, there's, there's a respect thing and consent, and that that's important to me. And so, um, yeah, it's exciting to me to be experimenting with the stories that are like, ouch, oh, that story hurts. And because we delayed this event, I've had extra weeks to be, like over the holidays. What's the story? I was sick with the flu over a bunch of the holiday, and my family was well and healthy, and they were out having events, and I watched like some of the stories that rose, and if I do believe in that if we notice that a story is hurtful to us or it's hurtful towards someone else, what how might we recraft it um, in a way that serves the relationship that matters to us? Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, when I think that language can really help, and I see work, and I think there's some aspects of it. This can be helpful. It used to be if someone told me something that was like there sounded like they were is a painful process, I'd say that must really hurt, or that must. I would tell them what they were experiencing, trying to be empathetic, but I was like
Mhm.
interpreting what they said and guessing what they were coming at is, and that kind of it doesn't give people a lot of freedom. It kind of like I'm telling them who and what they are. And now I really love I use the radical honesty was like, oh, I'm imagining that you must feel really sad about that. Is that true? Um, like I acknowledge I have a story that must be really a challenging thing to do. What is your experience? So then there's like it's a softening. It's still, I imagine it's still offering support to most people, but it gives them room to share. Oh, it wasn't really, I'm not really sad. I'm kind of angry. Or it gives them room to like, and sometimes I think it helps clarify for them what they're feeling because they're like, oh, not that. There's room for that. And I'm wondering if you started applying some of that for yourself. I think we get into really rigid thinking because we internalize what we're hearing outside. And I know I still do sometimes, but I used to speak very harshly to myself. You should have done that. You should have known. You should have, like, ah,
Ah,
that's not really loving. That's not really emphasizing the kind of internal story I want to have. I'm like, so now I try to be like, oh, imagine I was doing the best I could, and it would have been nice if I'd noticed this sooner. What can I do to help myself be more resilient and calm so I can notice things like that? But I it just if we can kind of pull in some of the gentler, we can practice with other people, but also internally with ourselves, not being quite so certain that we understand and interpreted it correctly. What other people, because we don't know what other people's experiences are. And sometimes we've already decided what our experiences were, our intentions were, without any like space for, wow, I'd had a really rotten day that day. It's amazing I was upright and coherent. Like, maybe I could be a little more forgiving to myself. So I just invite a little softening of that in terms of like, maybe I don't have to be quite so definite and already pre-decided how to interpret my own actions or other people's reactions to things.
the things I appreciated about tapping right from the start was that it is a storytelling tool. I get to speak about what the next line of the story is. Like, um, even though I'm really outraged that all these clothes are right behind the door, and a part of me is decided that they just don't even care. I deeply and completely accept myself. That started rewriting the story to be more healing because there was a lot of energy to it. And then if we did a workshop on curiosity, and if you were part of that, you know that including things like I wonder if there's another way of seeing this. Yeah, they're a bunch of lazy dogs. And I wonder if there's another way of seeing this. Well, it is kind of cold in the house, and when they take their clothes off and they get out of the shower and they're all in their towels, they run off and get dressed really fast and they don't come back. Um, if you've ever used one of the AIs like ChatGPT or Pi.ai, and you say, "Well, I'd like you to explain this really simply. Now I'd like you to explain it like you're pissed off and irritated and you have no patience with me. I'd like you to explain this as if you're so exhausted that to be asked this means like, why are you asking me to use my last bit of energy to explain to you one more time? Please put your clothes in the laundry." Um, it will do that. And I believe that it's helped me understand that if if I if somebody is tuned to a certain way by work, their day, their boss, their work, their energy, what they ate, what's in their gut, um, that the story we're going to get back, the way the words will flow, um, may be surprisingly short, angry, even dismissive. You know, um, it doesn't. I'm at this place where I have this big question, having used AI, which has consumed, trillions of stories and of all types, from the mathematical to the fantastical, and noticing that I can just ask it to give it to me in many different ways, and it will. Like, okay, okay, you want to be pissed off? I can totally do that.
Well, and I think our
Mm,
brains are similar. We can ask ourselves, how else can I tell this story?
yes, and that's the the kind of all right, how else might I tell this story? How else could I? Their story surprised me, shocked me, saddened me, pissed me off. How? What's another way I could see this? What's another way I could see this? Um, I think trauma sometimes gets us to lock into an interpretation. Um,
Well, just neural
it's my
pathways.
fault. Like you were saying, Kathy. My guess is that if something went wrong in your family, your assumption, um, the story that you would start writing is, oh, this is my fault somehow, even though I don't see it. As the story unfolds, maybe I'll figure it out, maybe I won't, but I'm going to be, I'm the scapegoat. I'm the antagonist. I'm the person. Um, you can interpret the world as, oh, I'm too needy. Oh, I'm not a success. I'm not attractive. I'm unlikable. Um, if your genre is, this happened because I'm unlikable, this happened because I don't have skill or savvy in these situations, I invite you to look at, well, what's another way of saying this, right? um, Another way of making up a story about this. And what's fascinating is that when you land on one that's healing, you often cry. um, I was just unlikable. And, you know, you land on one where, yeah, grumpalumpuses don't like me. People without integrity, they don't like me. And it's been so hard to be running into grumpalumpulus and cheater and fraud and, them and those. And it's been such a journey that I've been on. I'm glad I haven't lost myself in what matters to me. Tears, you know, um, happy. And we're going to take a break here in a few minutes for 7 minutes.
Well, I think one of the things, trauma and also repeated patterns make neural pathways or grooves. So, have you ever seen a dirt road where cars have driven by repeatedly in a certain path, or like there's dips, and it's hard to drive anywhere else because like it's they're grooves, and you'll like be unsteady if you're not in there. Our brain works similarly. So, I've had intense trauma or a lot of repetition or both. It can be hard to shift those patterns. Someone was talking about a lot of negativity, and I grew up in a family where people just picked on each other all the time. And it's, I didn't really like it, but it took a while to work my way out of that. That's one of the reasons tapping can help shift some of that. A reminder note, a post-it note, like, what can I say that's kind? How can I and it may feel awkward at first, just like when we first start working out and we haven't worked out, or we started to tie our shoes when we had tied our shoes. Anytime we do something new, it feels awkward. Our brain will often say this should be easy, so therefore we want to give up. But anything new is challenging and it feels awkward. that feeling of, this is not easy is actually a sign of us growing. And if you can just keep practicing, then you start growing ruts in better places. So it's easy
Mhm.
to drive in other directions. So
Um, top of the head. I want ruts in better places.
I want ruts in better places.
Eyebrow. I want more scenic pathways.
I want more scenic pathways.
Side of the eye. I know where I learned this.
I know where I learned this.
And uh, I want better stories.
I want better stories.
Under the nose. I'm so ready for better stories.
I'm so better for better
I'm
stories.
so better for ready stories.
So better for better stories.
Perfectionism. I'm ready for the fantasy of perfectionism. Oh, I appreciate that I'm here working on this.
I do appreciate that I'm here working on this.
And the arm. Sometimes when I hear what's coming out of my mouth,
Sometimes when I hear what's coming out of my mouth,
it's not the story I really want to be telling.
it's not the story I really want to be telling.
I wonder.
I wonder.
I wonder.
I wonder.
I've already got some ideas here.
And I've already got some here.
So we're going to take a break for 7 minutes. We'll pause the recording. And while we're paused, if there's something that you'd like to share in the chat, feel free to do that. Take care of yourself, integrate. And we're going to, I, I would love to have some examples of stories that kind of are sticky for you, that you might have a difficult or story dynamics that are challenging for you, so that Kathy and I can explore, um, different genres and different approaches to take them from being hurtful to more healing, nourishing, supportive of your well-being and your freedom.
And I'm just before you stop the recording, I think it's important to say we're trying to be less critical of others, and we say something critical. It really is okay to say, "Oh my goodness, I just realized I said that very critically, and that's not who I want to be," and change it to stop ourselves even out loud. I think we tend to want to stick to the story we did, but I find it really healing and powerful to say, that's not who I wanted to be in that moment. I'm really sorry I said that. I'm grumpy today and it wasn't about you at all. And I really appreciate this about you or something. Just kind of stopping, turning it around, acknowledging that's not who we want to be. I think that can be really powerful. So I just wanted to offer that to you.
Thank you. We're back in 7. Welcome back. Um, there's some great questions and scenarios that are starting to get shared in the chat. We really appreciate those that help make this a workshop by being here live when they can and sharing. Um, there are places both on the Thriving Now Center as well as other places where you may see this workshop to comment and ask questions and share your own wisdom. We Part of my story is that this work together is about exploring wisdom, emotional wisdom, kindness, figuring out how to parent. Used to be a story that your parents were above you as a child, hierarchically, and they deserved your respect and your listening just because you're the child and they're the parent. That story was so embedded into certain cultures and still is in pockets and countries and other places. Um, Change for me comes from like crafting a new story. Like I'm a co-creator with my kids, and shame is part of human reaction. And I remember what it was like, and I could share stories of shame being used to control what I did, what I said, what I didn't say, what I revealed and what I didn't reveal. And part of my story now is shame's a powerful energy. And um, what story are we crafting about that feeling? My story that I'm still crafting about shame is, and this is what I have said. I said, well, do you like, there was a question about if I say, hey buddy, it's too much for me right now, and he feels like he's doing wrong, there's a shame spiral or something. Um, what is the story? I say, well, you like that you're exuberant, right? I do. Yeah, I do too. It's been such a blessing in my life. And, part of me wishes that I was always ready to rock. And right now, dear God, I can't. You know, I can't. And um, I can say that over iterations of that, um, the story I used to, my nervous system used to have when my partner was hangry, um, was I've failed her. Like that's the story that hit me. And that hurt. Like that is a story that hurts. And crafting is like, oh, you know, her human body, she tells me in the morning really needs food right away. And a lot of the times I'm really useful. I make sure she has a protein drink right when she wakes up, and we've got food ready, but sometimes she's going to be hangry anyway. And when she's in that state of being, I know what that's like. My hangry is different than hers, but I know what it's like to have low blood sugar or need something. You see how I'm blending in compassion, understanding, acceptance, adaptations. This is part of what I would call thriving storytelling, is that we look for ways that feel like, there are some real challenges with being an empath, but I tell you, when you land on a story that really serves the we space, you get tingles. You're like, oh, I like this story. I can live this story. I can continue to develop. Oh, we're in book 4 of this story, and now we're going to go to book 5, and our characters are changing. And um, does that make sense?
I think it's great. And I want to emphasize that that doesn't mean we can't occasionally snap at someone or we try to understand, we try to be compassionate, and there's going to be days when you have the perfect storm, like your boss yelled at you, you haven't eaten, the car wouldn't, whatever it is, like our nervous system, we may snap at somebody sometimes, or we may do something that is the old story. And I try to acknowledge it verbally with the other person as quickly as I can. Sometimes I'll call a break and process with, like, can I vent for you? Like I'll process it with somebody else and then go back to the person, depending on how close I am. But I think the more we can acknowledge, we don't have to be perfect. There are several people talking about perfectionism in here. We either think we're a load of crap or we're perfect or better than everyone else. That's a way to avoid what actually is. The truth is, I have some really good strengths and I have some places where I'm frail. And that life can happen so that even my greatest strength can't help me sometimes. And there's times when my weakest point is still fine. Like but I think if we can be present with those things, I am both, and model that to other people as well. There's days when I'm going to be snappy and I don't mean to. I'm going to come back and say, hey, I'm really sorry. That wasn't about you. What I would have liked to have done was ask for what I wanted. And a lot of people don't. Like Rick's stepmother with the ice cream. Maybe she had a story about there wasn't enough money or she really wanted some ice cream too, but she wasn't saying, hey, I'm noticing could you save me a bowl of ice cream? You're eating it all and I'm going to call you a pig because I'm not asking for what I want. Or I feel that I have to go get it. I'm going to like a lot of times when we snap at other people or we call names like that, it's because there's something we may not even notice we want it, but we're judging the other person because we feel like we can't say something that we need or want. So his son, his boy to like, hey, I need some quiet time right now. that's more likely going to make him snap if he can't acknowledge to even to himself or to the other person what he needs and wants. So the more we can kind of say, like, and I really like, I used to try, oh, I'll be better next time. I'm not going to acknowledge the fact I made a mistake, but I found that kept me kind of stuck in the pattern. So, well, it took some courage and not everybody responded beautifully. Going back and saying, I felt like my tone wasn't really where I wanted it to be the last time we talked. And I just want to say, this is not who I want to be. And I really appreciated what you shared. I was feeling tired. I would have liked to have asked for to delay the conversation to another time. I didn't. And I'm sorry that my tone wasn't as understanding as I would have liked it to be. And it's also very good. One, we practice, we're building the muscles for ourselves, but we also find out who can handle it, who wants to have that kind of a relationship with us. Because, some people may be surprised at first, but they come around, or some people are like, yes, that's great. And the people that don't want that, maybe they're not the right fit right now for where you want to go. Just maybe they don't have the resiliency. Doesn't mean they might not have it later, but maybe we don't need to. I choose generally not to spend as much time with people that can't hear that I'm infallible. If you want me to be perfect, you should find somebody else because I'm not perfect. None of us are. And I think the more we model that for other people and ourselves, the more we can let go of that rigid, like I've got to either be 100% amazing, super person, or I'm just this. Someone should dump me in the gutter and just leave me there to rot. And I'm pointing fingers back at me because I grew up with that kind of mentality. If I did something good, I was like, you can't touch me. I'm better than all of you. And when I messed up, I was just the worst person in the world versus all of us do things we don't want to do. All of us, like, I have no human that is perfect. They may pretend they are, but they're probably denying it for themselves too. And that really limits our freedom when we do that.
Someone shared in the chat, and I think it goes to um, have you ever read a story and something was left out, and you finish the story and the story is fine, but there's something missing. Like, what happened to the dog? Um, and
Open loop.
uh,
Where's that thing
an
happening?
open loop. And trauma has a quality of open loop to it, right? What what happened is a very common, like, I don't understand. I don't understand
Why?
how they could say that about me. I don't understand. Um, and someone said, I heard someone say that if you speak to yourself and it hurts, what you've said is not true. And that is a great starting point. Like, what it feels true? What if it's not true? But here's an aspect of it that I like to extend it. It could be not true and it could be incomplete. Could be, and let me give you an example. I'm just not good enough. As a coach, I learned something about that statement. It's so general. What are they talking about? Are you not good enough to drink a glass of water? Are you not good enough to spell your name? Like, what are you talking about? And when you get more complete, it starts filling out the story. I'm not good enough to make my mother love me. Yep, she's a narcissist. She doesn't have that app.
Nobody's
The
that good.
love thy child and be willing to die for them app is missing. It's just like press. It's not there. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not good enough to overcome my parents' personality disorder. I'm not good enough to turn an alcoholic into a sober person and value me. Okay, the I'm not good enough is it's so much in our I am. It's an identity statement. If you have an identity statement that hurts, look at what does that really mean? Someone, I'm not likable. And I think we mentioned that with the Grumpalompalus. Um, I, I've been unlikable in so many circumstances. If you are the only sober person at a bacchanal, right, where people do not want anyone remembering the stuff that goes down, right? But you're sober. and you're aware you are not going to be likable in general by that group. And that's my story. And I have lots of examples of being the sober person in environments where I started getting looks like, "What are you doing here?" Um, I walked into a place to go dancing, and I was the only untattooed person, and someone even called me on it, and I'm like, "What?" It was very confusing to me, and it struck the I'm not wanted. I don't fit in. That's a story for me, right? Like from a child, I don't fit in. That's a story that hurts. I don't fit in with tribes that have an identity that I don't fit, right? I don't fit in with people who dot dot dot. And you even with whatever story, character, caricature that you have about me from our last, you know, minutes together or hours together or years together, you can probably guess like, oh, I would not I would not suggest Rick go to that event. I wouldn't suggest that Rick try to have a relationship with that person. And it's so if your story that hurts is I don't fit in with people who dot dot dot, because trauma says it's generalized. It's the same thing with feeling inferior. Our status brain tries to figure out the world and where we fit on the status. We've all been in our gene pool, we've been toilet slaves and kings and queens. So it has to figure that out. And so people that are like trying to push us down, they're trying to say I'm above you. So part of my story is, hey, I'm noticing this hierarchy game going on inside of me and with others. Oh, you know, I don't play cricket and I really don't want to play hierarchy either. So what game do I want to play? I like infinite games. I like games of nature and ecosystem and co-creation and we spaces. Wow. You see, I just crafted a little story that took me from the status, I'm not good enough. You know, my my bank account isn't big enough to play with those guys. Um, that hurts. Like, oh, and I really don't. That's not what's drawing me. That's not really where I want to be. I'm wondering where I wonder where my people are, my kinfolk are. So yeah.
Well, I think part of the story is like if we say I haven't met the people I want to connect with yet,
Ah,
versus I can't find them, or I'm very lonely. I don't maybe I deserve this loneliness. I did a lot of that with the body image work I did because I'm a bigger person. I have more body fat on my body than a lot of people do. But our society puts the word fat with like all kinds of negative associations. That you're dirty, lazy, worthless. It's all put in there. And one of the things I've tried to do for myself is reclaim the word fat is like, I am fat. And that was one of the things someone said, if you tell a story and it hurts, well, that hurt because I was still putting other meanings with it. Like I'd like this is where I am right now. And why can't I love myself? Why do I have to lump in that I'm not a lazy person? I am not. Like it's like, huh. But our society puts them together and really meshes them in our world. If you, I think, fat is a sign of you have lost worth. You are not a valuable person. You shouldn't be bothered with. And there's a gravitational pull on that. That's hard. It's like, again, we're swimming in the water of this and it's hard. Like we can't not breathe it, but we can gradually learn to separate those things. I can say I'm fat without feeling like I'm a worthless pile of shit. But that took a lot to do. And I still have to kind of I'll notice, oh, when that person said it, it kind of didn't feel good because there was the mixture of that in there. So I think when we're telling stories, it may be the story is fine, but what's the tone? What are the meanings that are associated with it? Found the people that I really bond with. Does that mean to me I never will, that I'm destined to be alone? that there's something wrong with me, or just mean, huh, do I have to start looking in someplace else, in other places? Do I have to build skills to connect with people better? There's, they're very positive stories. I haven't met them yet. What do I need? What skills, resources, locations, like information do I need to get to that? Or I'm never going to. This is just, I'm stuck here. I'm just like think of those little plastic dolls you can make dance by pushing the little thing up the
Yeah.
strings. Like they would kind of, and sometimes I feel like, there's like, it's never going to happen. Um, so I just invite you, if you notice that you have, if your story doesn't seem too bad, step back and say, what are the things that are coming along for the ride? What's hitched on to the words or the meanings of the things I'm saying? Because sometimes just unhitching one of those or adding the word in yet and say, what do I need to do to get there? What baby steps can I
Mhm.
take? Can I take a class on communication or connection so maybe I can build better connections with other people? Where would I think those people, if I'm, where could they be? Can I go to some different meetups and start meeting different groups of people so that I can start having my story have different meanings? I think that's really powerful.
Mhm. Someone asked if people have said or done things to threaten you in the past, how can you start telling yourself a story that you're safe? Um, mm, well, if you tried to tell yourself, oh, I'm safe, and your bullshit detector goes, "Oh, I'm not. You, she woke up in that morning, she looked in the mirror and said, I am safe. She knew it was a lie. Um, because she'd come to understand that safety isn't just black and white, it's a spectrum. And that there are creatures, furry creatures, even furry creatures that she really finds beautiful, majestic, but she shouldn't pet the leopard. And um
Especially around feeding time.
yeah, and she's come to understand that there are smells and signals and sounds and attitudes that, that person is on the spectrum of safety, just isn't where I like to live. It's not where I want to feel relaxed. That there is a spectrum of safety. And even the people that are the safest, they get hangry. And it's like, no, don't try to cuddle them then. Um, and it's okay. It's okay because I have a spectrum too of safety. Like, I'm glad I have a don't fuck with me kind of side, right? And I have oh, come, I will hold you. You can cry, you can grieve, you can know that you are loved side too. And so you start looking at, um, I, we know that things that are binary. I love that we're in an age where, like, there's a spectrum of exuberance, there's a spectrum of emotional savvy, there's a spectrum of empathy. You know, there's if I'm not seeing the spectrum, that's where I can look at my story. It's like,
Yeah, I
oh,
think that
Rick decided, based upon what he experienced for 3 years, that no man can be trusted. And that was a damn wise thing based upon the close the experience that he had over and over. But he started to notice that, you know, you can sometimes trust men to do this, to do that, to not do this and not do that. Not entirely, like, there are a lot of them on the planet. I'm not saying that they're all identical, but I'm coming to notice that he was kind to that other person, and he was thoughtful, and he demonstrates excellent consent. Wow. Did you hear what he just asked? You want me to sit next to you, or would you like me to sit across from you? Wow. You start fashioning a story that lets you activate more of your sensors, the spectrum sensors. my discernment about humans needs to be able to feel them on a spectrum. If it's black or white, that's actually an alert. Oh, they're so awesome. That's trauma speaking, right? If I feel like they're hallelujah, that we know, I know my story, I have lots of nonfiction and world stories about how when we exalt someone to they can do no wrong, that's trauma, that they're utterly evil. Um, that's also, it may be the predominance, but it to me is a signal. Black and if I'm in black and white thinking, I'm not as clear. So I come back to what matters to me,
I
and
think
so I
that's
can
what can I
discern. Go
I
ahead.
just say I think what Rick's saying is really, really important. I do a lot of people in the tantra world, and they're like, there's people that are very negative, and in the tantra world, people are very, very positive to like nothing can go wrong because I'm full of love and light. They're not seeing the spectrum. They're locked in. They're really positive, and there's other people locked really negative. So when people say they want to be safe, they want to feel safe. I don't think this world is 100% safe. So trying to make yourself feel 100% safe, you're now locked into that false positive that it also becomes it's not actually reality. It's like I'm locked in, I won't see anything negative. I don't think that makes us realistically effective at life. If we can see the spectrum, as Rick was talking about, we don't want to be black or white. We want to see that all human beings can, you put anyone in the right circumstance, they're going to do something mean. Like you pin me in the corner, don't feed me for 3 days, and tell me negative things or whatever. I'm going to be grumpy about it. I'm not going to be sweet about it. You can make, anybody can be that way, but I think if we see the spectrum, these people are generally good and kind and caring, and maybe, oh, that person's in a bad mood today. I'm just going to ask if they want some support, or I'm going to leave them alone. But I think it's really important to notice that our stories don't have to be locked in super positive or super negative. We can just steer them towards where we want to go. And we can also make sure we're still seeing the realistic spectrum of what is. We don't want to be in denial. And someone had asked before break if we're telling a story with ourselves, a different story about ourselves versus, being told upon. One, you probably came up with that story from other people telling you stories about yourself, even if maybe before you were even conscious of it. So doing some tapping on what other people told you when you were little might loosen that up a little internally. And then looking for ways, small ways you can notice that you don't internal stories. Just like a post-it, like, is this true? Wherever you do a lot of that work. So I keep a lot at my desktop because that's where I'm facing some of my things, where I'm writing things or dealing with challenges. Is this true? And I just like, I'm so stupid. I should have done this before. Is this true? Oh, well, I was really busy. I'm getting to it now. Like some kind of pattern interrupt is a really good way. And you're not looking to wipe out the story usually completely all at once. Our nervous systems don't usually work that way. Something every once in a while you can, but I think one, releasing the old patterns that if your mom or your dad, or when we were very young and it was into your subconscious, doing some tapping on that to release that. And then some kind of pattern interrupt where you can notice small changes that you can make, small awarenesses you can have. They'll help start changing the story. And then when you can, celebrate that you notice. So we get dopamine when we celebrate. It's like little candy drops to the brain. And so we're like, the more we can say, oh my God, I did good. Oh, I'm going to feel good. My brain is more likely to build the neural pathways. We don't like to build those routes to places where there's no good things. If we drop some dopamine in there, it's more likely our brain will want to build those neural pathways, if that makes sense. So the
I
celebration, if you
Yeah, thank you. I didn't mean to step on that because celebration, like you said, if you're building, if the goats have led you in a certain place and you like where it leads, savoring and enjoying it. And someone, I read that person's question a little differently.
oh,
Um, I if we're talking about the stories that we share with others about who we are, and
you're okay.
there can be the historical story. Well, I And I've noticed that um, when you say a story that about your past and it just doesn't fit you anymore, um, and you before the call, Kathy, you and I talked about performance versus authenticity.
Mhm.
Um, there are people that are performers that stand up and tell their story exactly the same with the same laugh lines and the same tiered lines and things like that. Um, and there's a little bit of a performer in me, and I, if I have a story though that really it's time for it to evolve, um, noticing it and bringing it back for recrafting. Um, what do I want to share about myself? Um, Times have changed. I used to, I, and, and a shortcut for me into the story is I've come to notice that what really matters to me now is so I could tell the story of um, my teenage years. I could tell the story about my evil stepmother. There's so many stories. Um, or I could say, what matters to me now as a stepfather, step parent to a child is there's a quality of heart adoption inside of me, and that as I know that I am not his dad, and so it's not there's there are complexities. It's a different ecosystem, but I would love for him to feel like I'm there. I I'm with him in this life. I'm co-creating. I recognize his gifts and his gaps. I'm being clear about my gifts and my gaps, and it's a dance. And um, you know, we're not perfect roommates, but we're not roommates. We're sharing a childhood. I get to be a part of his world. That's different from the normal hero's arc, where we're trying to look good. We're that's just who I am. You may like that. I don't know that his what his dad would think of that. um, and it's an opportunity for us to decide and come from like that goes to crafting a story that's guided by your heartistry and what matters to you now. um, I, a lot of humans, someone mentioned about past relationships that didn't work out. I've got a bunch, right? I was married for 22 years, not married to that person anymore, haven't since 2007. um, Now, people just hearing that little snippet will start making up stories about what kind of man I am. And what I can say is that relationships are really deeply precious to me. And I've come to understand that there's a level of safety, respect, and freedom that are essential in my relating. They bring out the best in me. There's a quality of exchange where we're both um, just our energy and our emotions make life better. It's better to be co-creators together. And that's what I'm living. And that's what matters to me now. And I'm doing my best imperfectly. I'm an aspiring imperfectionist. Um, and so yeah, artistry is one of my favorite words.
I know we're at
Kathy,
the
do you
end.
want to,
I
yeah,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
just so I'm listening to this podcast by someone, Jason Seb, who he pointed out something that I think is important for us to notice, to help us notice what stories we're trying to tell other people about ourselves, um, and how much we pretend with other people. So someone was saying about they can't go to the movies because they didn't have anyone to go with. And Jason replied, "Do you want to go because you want the experience of going with someone else? Or do you want someone else to go with you so other people will see you as having someone to go with? What kind of impressions are we trying to create with other people when half the time they're not even paying attention to us? But I thought it's a kind of it made my brain think a lot about what am I actually doing? Am I just trying to impress other people or am I looking for what's genuine for me? So I just wanted to add that in because I think it goes with this whole storytelling. Also, what are we trying to complete strangers at the movie theater? And I've done this too. Like, oh, what are they thinking about me? They're probably not. They're probably just glad to know what's sitting in front of them. They're looking forward to their own movie. But if we can notice what we're doing, because we often contort ourselves to try to make an impression and create an act, we're acting for other people to try to create a belief, a story about ourselves. And I want to let that go. I want to have more freedom to do what feels right and authentic to me, as long as it's appropriate for the venue or whatever. Um, and so I just wanted to share that because I think that for me, that was like, oh, yeah, that's a good way barometer to look at. Am I doing something because it's not a good fit for me or because of what other people might think about me? So
Mhm. Yeah. Are you trying to write your character in somebody else's story, or are you writing your story?
yeah,
And for freedom, um,
authentic and
yeah.
reality are pretty similar. Right? So
Well, again, I think if we embrace um, someone else's reality is not mine when it comes to the stories that are happening. Um, and
but
as we
authentic means
take it, bring it back
letting
so that the stories that other people are writing are less of the influence on the relationship than being clear about our own what matters, what we want to bring. The character, we talk about characters and characteristics of of like if Hermione has certain characteristics that were the storyteller created about that person, and we do that. But if we're tending to, hey, what are the characteristics that matter to me? Am I getting an opportunity to be that, to demonstrate that in my story? Am I, you know, what's happening? What's right for me? What am I wanting to grow and evolve and change? So
yeah.
um, we're at the 90-minute point, and I agree. There is so much around authenticity and truth, and we have a whole course series of real skill workshops on Be What Matters. It's free. Go to thrivingnow.com/courses, and you'll find it there. Um, and the savvy relating and engaging work that we've been doing, we're going to be shifting gears to being around our energy, emotional energy, physical energy, some other things. Um, if you're on our list, you'll hear about the next upcoming workshops.
Yeah,
This
thank you
work
right on.
continues.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you all for being here and being so
Great
present
discussion.
with us. We feel you, and thank you. Anything else, Kathy?
There's some great questions in here. I wish we had more time to get in with them with people. Um, and if you can, just be gentle with yourself in this process. This is a big deal. This is our core identity we're messing with. It's very, very powerful work, and you don't have to do it overnight. If you can, be gentle as you adjust the foundations of your life. And I hope it's amazing. I hope it's easy.
And please bring this to where the replay is posted. Follow up questions. We'd like this work to continue. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.